All right, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead and let's get started. Just one quick note that this presentation is being recorded. Doesn't mean I'm holding against you, it's just a notice to be sure that you're aware of it. Okay, so I'm not, let me tell you what this presentation will be about. Okay, what will not be about. There's nothing earth-shaking and being new in the GUI. So if you have been on it many times before, you probably have seen the stuff that we are going to discuss. However, very often we get tickets in box office from clients asking, how do I do X? And therefore, we decided that maybe it's time to put together some of these sessions to have a conversation with our clients, to ask actually, what is it you would like to do, that we can show you how to do it, or if maybe we don't know it, we'll learn it as well. Okay. So you see the screen that you're probably used to. I have three screens, three boxes here to grab different kind of data depending on how I need it. One thing that I hope it's obvious is known to all of you. Every one of the widgets in the entire GUI has two buttons, two filters. Okay? One filter is, depending on the kind of widget, changes the view in terms of the range, but also it can change the actual query in the database. Right? So in this case, if I'm looking, for example, the network activity summary, and this is telling me that in the last minute, I've had an attack from Argentina and one from Russia on this device, I can filter it down to which IP they were trying to, I want to try and verify. If I want to see specific, if I have too much information, I want to filter it down. Or even in some cases to which user I want to try and taper it down. Okay? I can even reduce the query down to the type of attack that I want to see. Am I trying to look at firewall blocks, at DDoS attacks, and an intrusion of some sort, at a mail server problem, whatever it is that I want to look at. Okay, so the filter in every one of the widgets, the filter will allow you to be more specific on the query, literally on the database query that you are going to run. And it's very useful, obviously, when you have a lot of data to look at. The other one is always the same for all of them. It allows you to change the appearance when that's possible. In this case, it's almost always possible, but it's not always the same. Here it's either a map or a table. Here it's either a chart or a table or a chart table, which basically shows you both, okay? It's gonna show you the chart and the table at the same time. And this is the same across the user interface. In some cases, you can change what you're looking at. For example, in this case, I am trying to see, for example, something on this particular interface. This is a network utilization, but because this one is so high, it's reducing all the others. So what I can do is I can eliminate it by clicking on the color. Okay? So immediately the view scales up, because now this that I wanted to see has become the most prevalent, and I can even enlarge it if I want to see some particular details. Okay, I can always eliminate as many as I want. If, for example, if I wanted to go down to the orange, and the orange is not giving me much, it's really very low, I am probably going to have to reduce a lot more of what I'm seeing and go back to seeing only the orange. Okay. Okay, without spending too much time on it, you probably know, but if you don't, I'll show you how you can change the dashboard. That's why it's called the dashboard. It is your initial view to the user interface. So you can literally edit it, okay, and rearrange it. There is also a reset. If if you don't like what you did, you just reset it to the default. There is two views, the default and the advanced. I actually prefer the advanced because it gives me access to, I believe, 12 different dashboards. 8, this is a dashboard, sorry. And these are specific to different parts of what we can see on the user interface. So this is a network dashboard. This will be a CPU dashboard utilization, like a box utilization dashboard. This will be a network utilization dashboard. And then you have a VPN utilization dashboard. What it's doing is it is going to show the overviews in each one of these buttons. Every one of these has an overview, right? So each one of these will become a dashboard that you can modify. Because it's a dashboard, you can change it, right? So you can literally edit this dashboard and eliminate one of these if you don't want it. Right? And or I can decide that this is way too big. I want a smaller. Why? Because I want to go somewhere else in the analysis overview, in the VPN, and I want to VPN, and I want to add something else. Right? So what I do here is I go and say add to dashboard, and it puts it in the dashboard that I was looking at, in the correct one. This is a VPN view. It puts it into the VPN dashboard. Since it's too small, I am going to resize it a little bit this way. Okay, I didn't mean to do this big. Let me do it this way because this map doesn't look very nice. So I make it a little bigger. You can see how I can play with it. I'm not going to spend too much money playing with these things, but you can see. One thing I want to highlight on this particular map, okay? If in box office and in the configuration of the device, of your device, the geographic location is set up correctly in terms of longitude and latitude, it will show it on the map correctly, right? This particular box that we're looking at, I believe this is in Virginia, so it's not quite correct. It's in the Amazon cloud, so it should be a little further down. The reason why sometimes things don't appear really correct, and you see one, a couple of VPNs looking like they're just in the middle of the Gulf, is because geographic geolocation is unfortunately not a perfect science. There are a few companies that do this as private corporations that make a living out of it. For example, there is the largest one is called MaxMind, and we purchased their database. We pay for it, right? But the way they maintain the database is not exactly very precise. To give you an idea, we are using a subnet that we are publishing in Virginia. But if I go and do a geographic IP lookup of any of those IP addresses, it's an entire /24, they all look like they're coming out of Texas. And I've been discussing with the MaxMind for a whole month now why they're in Virginia, why I want them to show up in Virginia, and why it's incorrect that they're in Texas. And that's what's causing these VPNs to show in the wrong places, right? And the reason why I'm saying it, I'm making a big deal out of it, is because if you start using this window properly, this widget properly, and you start seeing your green lines going all over the place, you're probably going to wonder who's connecting to me from Detroit or whatever that is, from Ohio. It doesn't necessarily mean that there is somebody really in Ohio connected to you. It's that more likely that the geographic IP location of the IP address is incorrect. Okay? It's worth verifying, of course. We have had situations recently where a geographic IP showed up to be in Germany, but in reality, the person in the VPN was in the US. Okay, so it was even worse than the Virginia versus Ohio. This one was literally in another continent. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the GUI, but I figured I should mention it because it's important if you're looking at this information on the VPN. These are questions that will come up. I'm going to restore this, and I'm going to move away from the dashboard into something else for the activity overview and attacks overview. In the network overview first, let me go to the VPN. Many of you have the users at home, and the VPN activity right now has become a big deal for all of you. Right? So I want to see from a different box, though I'm going to need, because there is no one VPN. The VPNs you see here are IPsec tunnels between boxes that we have in the AWS infrastructure all over the US. So, but they have nothing to do with your problem, which is the SSL VPN. Okay? There is something going on in the chats. Okay, let me go back to the SSL, to the other device. I believe this one, this is in the East Coast here, and I think there is some VPN in here, some VPN activity. Okay. I know there's going to be at least my VPN activity. It better be there because I'm connected to it right now. Okay, so I'm connected right here. So I could stop myself and then lose all the connectivity to everything. This is the overview, but I can also go and look at the details a little bit. I can have a session summary or an event. Let's check the events first. Okay. In the last hour, the events have been only IPsec events. There have been some phase one reestablished. In the last, I don't know, 7 days. Let me see if I can grab the 7 days worth of activity. A lot of IPsec. Then, because it's too much IPsec and I don't want it, I changed the application equal to SSL server. Okay. SSL server is, and there it is. I have a connection and a disconnection for myself. Okay. I can click and see some details. And this is, it tells me the kind of key I'm using. It's a private key and certificate. It's a SSL client. This tells me the IP address I'm coming from. Yeah, it even tells me that I'm on a Windows platform. And the session started on September 30th at 4:29 a.m. Okay. Yes, at 4:29 a.m. And then this one ended on the same day at 1:39, 00:01, so 1 minute after midnight. Okay. If you have any questions, please don't let this be a monologue because I don't want to speak for a couple hours on my own and lose all your attention. You are muted to avoid too much noise on the conversation, but please put in the chat. We have somebody else, Noor, my colleague, is monitoring the chat, and she will bring your questions to my attention. Okay. In the meantime, I also want to encourage you to stay until the end, because at the end, if you are present, your name will be entered in a little raffle where we will send you one of these. Just one to some, there is apparently an app that you can put a bunch of names in there and it randomly pulls one out, like out of a hat. And that person will receive this little speaker, which apparently has very incredibly good quality of sound, and it is smaller than an iPhone, and it's also waterproof. You can literally drop it in the pool and it will still work. So back to the presentation. We have talked about the VPN. There is something else I want to show you before the various sessions. These are the sessions that are currently active. Okay, and today is a little too much. Let me see. I want the ones that are active now. Oop. This is called demo effect. There's always something happening when you are doing a demo. Back to it. Analysis, network, VPN, sessions. Okay. Okay. This is the currently active sessions. I've been on a VPN for a day and 9 hours. If we want to have a conversation about, I get a lot of people telling me that they want them to disconnect automatically. They don't want the users connect all the time. I honestly have never been able to get somebody to explain to me what the problem is. This computer is at home. I was at home. I didn't leave it connected when I left, just to be sure. But if I am home, the computer is home, nobody's touching it. The reason why the VPN wouldn't be or shouldn't be connected, I personally don't understand it. I connect, I stay connected, it's extremely stable. And when I need it, it's already here for me, ready to work. This has nothing to do with the GUI as well. I'm just digressing. It's just my opinion on, I don't understand why some auditors feel so strongly about having to disconnect the VPNs after a few hours. Besides, when I do that, you never know if the users are in the middle of doing something and I just crash them and they lose an hour of work. It's just not, to me, it's not a good idea. But nevertheless, we can we can set things up in whichever way the clients desire. Okay, so enough of the VPNs. I think we have talked sufficiently. One thing that you have probably noticed as I was talking about these buttons, and I'm hoping you know that already, but you can add any of these widgets to a report. Okay? Or you can export them right now. So if I export it, the view I have on the screen will end up in a CSV or a PDF. If I put it into a report, the widget itself ends up in the report. But the difference is the export is right now, is what I'm looking at on the screen will be in the export. The report allows me to change the time frame and even to do it recurring. So I may want to look at this once a day for the entire day. I put this in a report and I say a new report, VPNs. Right? And I created the report. Then I go on the reporting. And I have this VPN. I edit it. I set up recurring. I said I wanted daily. I wanted to run at 1 a.m. and I wanted for the last 24 hours. And I want to be sent to me. Okay? I'm going to have to put my email address here. Okay? And then I do not forget to enable it and to choose the format you want to see. Okay? And then I save it and it saves. Tonight at 1 a.m. they will run and I will receive the report for today because I'm running it tonight at 1 a.m. Okay. Any questions, anybody about, let me see if there's anything in the chat.
I have a question, Pierluigi. How do you track you? I have a question.
Anyone has a question? Okay, otherwise I'll keep going. Let me address another one of the questions that I hear most frequently. Who is using my bandwidth, right? Let me see, I need a box that has some modicum of activity. So this dashboard, I want a dashboard on my client. Who is using my network? Well, just to give you an idea, 95% of your traffic is going to be web traffic. whether it's HTTP or HTTPS. And considering that, according to Google, over 85% of the internet is now encrypted, that makes it for 75% of your traffic to be HTTPS. So if you're wondering who is using your network, the best way to find it is go look at who's using your HTTPS. The dashboard itself gives you an immediate idea. I'm going to change it to something else because I want to show you the view in a different way. The top entities, okay? We are not really grabbing names in our network because we don't use LDAP internally, but it says that this is who's using my network right now. Right? So because we're not using names, it just has others. What are they using it for? Or when they were using it in reality. This is entity network usage over the last 2 hours, 12:40, the last hour or so. It was very high, then it went down, it went up a little bit, okay? Clicking, it just gives me some extra details. And here it's telling me exactly what has been going on. In reality, you can see that it's me using the GUI that is causing the vast majority of activity on this device. Because admin NB web is just what I'm doing, is this user interface. Otherwise, it would have shown me by going on the button, on the dot, it would have shown me what else was causing it and what was the amount of data downloaded. Okay. Go back to the dashboard again. And again, let me click on this particular entity. And I can see what their entity has been doing. Their entity has been doing a lot of browsing. These are blocks that have been happening for their entity. That entity, their IP address is actually the IP address of the box itself in this case. There are no particular users logged. But the activity that I see is all hacking, possible hacking activity. Again, I can change the filter. In this case, in this particular pages, the time frame is actually outside of the widgets. It's at the top because we want to apply it to the entire page because all of these views are related. They're all showing you kind of the same information in different formats. Okay, that's why we moved the time frame and the more general filter that applies to the entire page to this particular button outside on the left. Okay. Anyway, if I go back, I want to go back here and click on this and go into the top threads. There is nothing right now, so let me change this to the current hour. Okay, and the largest activity was IPsec tunnels from two different, I know exactly what these are coming from our office, but there was the majority of the activity. There is not much more going on really on this particular box. I wish I had access to a box that has more activity to be able to show you more. But let me see, in the overview of the web client, on your boxes, if you go under the web client, you will be able to see much information here with the IP addresses of all the people who are actually browsing and what they're browsing. Okay. Maybe what I probably want to do is have another session like this specifically on a box that has a lot of this. You have these tops is probably the one that's most useful to all of you. This will show you this. If you have never seen this page, it will show you the utilization by username, the utilization by IP address, the utilization by URLs, and the utilization by categories. Okay, you can change the view into a table. Okay, and you can see this. Okay, there were 16 hits to this particular IP address. If I click on that, it gives me a little more information on the IP address that was accessing it. And I can actually go and see even more information on that particular one. Okay. Do not use one little trick on this GUI. Do not use the back arrow of the browser, because it will always take you to the dashboard. If you want to go back on the pages themselves, just right click and use back into the page. And you see that by clicking in the previous page, I've done by clicking here, which changes the view again, but let me put it back in the table, and let me click back on this, right? I am doing nothing more than going into the web client activity event logs, which is something I could have accessed even from here, event log, right? Except that it's already put a lot of filters, particularly the time frame that I chose and the URL site that I wanted to see, so that it makes the query faster. Okay? So I was able to see that the vast majority of the activity was due to this IP address with 16 hits and 482 kilobytes. You can see these boxes are not very utilized, but at the same time, it's it's giving me the top 5 utilization. If you are having problems with the internet utilization and you think somebody is overusing your bandwidth, I do suggest this is the page that you need to look at the most. Activity web client tops. Okay? The reason for that is because, again, the absolute majority of your traffic is going to be internet. This is statistically what we find in all the boxes that we're monitoring. Most of it is going to be HTTPS, which puts quite a strain on your network box if we are doing HTTPS decoding. So this is the page where you will find who is using which websites, which categories. And if we are collecting names, it will probably even be able to give it to you by give you the names. Okay? In this case, it's only IP addresses, and it's going to be the same IP addresses over here as well. Because again, we are not collecting names, but in most, I know most of you who are on the phone today, I know in most cases we are doing that. We have integrated your box with your LDAP. And so the names will show up here on the right. And you also, if things are working correctly, you should see a one-to-one correspondence between the name and the IP, right? Because if entity Joe has downloaded 3 gigabytes, and he's the one who's downloaded the most, on this side, you should see Joe's IP address with the same amount of data. The only reason why we should show both is because in some cases with some clients, users actually move around. So the entity that uses the most internet may not necessarily correspond to the IP address that was used the most. Because if the entity has moved to 3 or 4 computers, then the IP addresses there may not be a one-to-one correspondence. Okay. Okay, this box has no reports. Let me see this other one. We should use reporting one. Okay, so this box is a report because I created it. You've noticed a difference between this menu and this menu, okay? This is due to a configuration on the device. In order for you to be able to see the configuration tab, we have to enable it for you. We don't always do that by default. Normally clients ask that we enable it. What does it do? It allows you to see through the GUI the current configuration, right? Every part of the configuration will be shown. You can click on it, you can expand all of it at once, or you can check all of them one by one. Okay? However, the more I found this tab more useful is in the configuration history. there has been no changes in the last 14 days, but if there were changes, you would see them here. Let me see this one. Which box is this? So this is ATP AWS1. I made a change on this one. Let me see if I made changes on this one. Okay, no, there have been some changes here. You can see there have been some changes in the last 14 days. That's the default. You can go and change the timestamp, of course. The reason why it's important is because we log automatically every change that is made and who made the changes. Andrew cannot escape by changing his name because the log isn't done by his name. It's done by his key. He logs on with a dedicated key that the box knows to recognize him. And therefore, when he logs on to the NOC and makes a change to this box, the log will show the time frame, the timestamp, the name, what was deleted. If it's a plus, it was added. It was a minus, it was deleted. Okay. We don't make, just be clear with some clients ask, did you guys make changes? We really do not make random changes. We can't, because everything we do is logged. Everything everywhere. Okay. Another part that is important, entities. Okay, through the configuration, you can see all your entities, and for each entity, again, if we were collecting names, these IP addresses will show as names. You can manipulate the entity. What can you do? You can rename it. You can actually enter new attributes, or you can clear an attribute. Why do I need that? For example, if you want to add a user to your administrative GUI, you go in this area and you say, I want this person to be an admin, have an admin password. Okay. You put the password and the person now is able to log into the GUI and make changes. Another attribute, you've seen the list. You can associate an IP address statically to an entity or a MAC address even. You can associate a locale, you can associate a VPN name, you can associate a lot of different things. Okay. The entity password is something that's useful when we authenticate VPNs through entities, which we don't do much, but in some cases with some clients we do. You can associate the entity to a group. For example, if we are doing proxy authentication and rules by group names, you can do this manually here if you want to. Okay? You can even delete the entities. I would suggest that we do not delete, you do not delete entities, because if they're there, it's because there's some record in the database associated with a particular entity, and the entity ID is the key to those records. If you delete the entity, the ID goes away, the records are no longer accessible. Okay. Now, obviously, if it's a user that's been gone for 2 years and you don't care about the records, then yes, go ahead and delete it if you like. Okay. Maintenance sometimes is good. Another thing you can do from here, and this is something you can do yourself, is you can check access control lists. These are lists of, for example, in this case, IP addresses, right? If the access control list has a name that starts with custom, then you can actually modify it yourself, right? You can add fields, you can delete fields, and that has an immediate effect on the rules in the firewall or in the proxy that are using those lists. Okay, the same, for example, for URL, HTTP host, right? If there is any. So if I want to do, if I know what custom no auth is, clearly this is a list of HTTP sites of URLs that do not require authentication from the browser to the proxy. So if I want to bypass something else, I just put it in here. Okay. So there are a few things that you can modify yourself in case you weren't familiar with it, without having to open a ticket with the NOC. what I said earlier about logging everything, every change, it remains is true even in this case. Okay, the system will log that that change was made through the user interface. And if you logged in as with your name, your entity name, it will log your name. Okay? And the timestamp, obviously, and what change you made. More on the configuration. These are other rules and other things you can add. You can see condition. I wouldn't, you can system reboot and system shut down your box on here. You can reload the service if you feel that it's a service is kind of wobbly. One thing that is important that you can do that can be useful sometimes is the network setup. This network setup requires a PIN, and we need to give you the PIN. Okay? So once you have logged on with the username and password to the GUI to do the config network setup, you need to put in an extra PIN. And the reason for that is because once you get in there, you can change the WAN configuration. And that's what this page is for. So that you can change the WAN configuration. Because sometimes it happens that your ISP makes a change, or you change ISP, you forget to tell us, so we can no longer get to the box, but you can still get to it from the GUI via the LAN. Then you can go in here and change the WAN configuration, so the box will connect to the NOC automatically. Again, I'm not going to show you how to do this because it's really, I mean, if anybody starts playing with this, we will lose access to the device and you will lose internet. Okay. Just know that it's there in case we ever need it. Let me stop for another second or two. Let me see if there's any questions. How do you track the user? How do I know what websites the user is visiting? And okay, so we kind of went over that. So we go to the tops. Remember the analysis, activity, web client, tops, right? Or you can go into utilization, event logs. Then remember analysis, activity, web client, event logs, okay? And then here, we call it entity. If we are collecting usernames from your LDAP, they will show up here in the list, like these, okay? And these I entered manually in order to be able to show you something. In your case, if you, again, they will probably be here. If you don't have an entity name because we are not collecting names from the LDAP, then use the IP address, okay? And then choose the time frame. And you can even specify if you DD actually go to xyz.com. You can put it in the HTTP host, for example, right? So you can be very specific in the query that you're running. And once you do, it will give you a list with the number of hits during the day and the amount of bytes, megabytes, gigabytes, however, whatever there is, that the user downloaded from that particular site or in general from all the sites it visited, he or she visited during the time frame that you chose. Okay? When you open a ticket and ask us for this information, that's what we do. We do it from the command line instead of from here, but the query that runs in the background is the same. Okay? Does anybody else have any questions? I have been talking for 43 minutes. It's probably time to wrap it up, so I don't take too much of your time. Anything particular that you would like to know? Okay, I do not see any other questions coming, so I think I would let me just show you one more tab before we go. My account. This is my entity. These are the details of my entity on this box. I am being notified via the administrative command line and the portal the portal being box office every day. Okay, every time I can change this. To change this, I would have to go in box office to modify them. I don't know if you guys ever, if any of you has ever done that. This is just mostly, I can delete the line. I can't do much more. I can add a notification config. Okay? The severity that I want to know is error, and I want to be notified via the GUI and via the console. In my case, that's possible because I have access to the console. For normal users, it is not possible. Brenton is showing me whitelist, blacklist, asking me. I'm not sure what you mean. Are you talking about web whitelist or blacklist of emails? It's not in these boxes. That's an entirely different conversation because it's for I would say almost all of the clients in the US now we do it via a GUI, via a cloud-based system. If you mean in terms of allowing people to view or websites, it's in the access control lists. Okay? You can go back to the access control lists and choose put a user into a particular IP address or in a particular group. Typically, you would want to look at the overview of the configuration into the proxy. Okay, to see, for example, there is this the code is bypassed by this list. Oh, that's the list I want to modify. Then I go into the configuration, access list, and modify that particular list. Okay? It's an IP in this case, IP address. In this case, it's a domain. It's right here. It's a domain. Okay? Further down, there are actual rules. These rules are you can modify custom core. So let me say, for example, if I want to block a particular category, then I go back into the control lists. I go into category, URL category. Okay. I see custom core, custom malware, custom productivity, custom NB core. I wouldn't touch the NB cores. Actually, you cannot modify them. There's no buttons here. We don't touch them either because those come, they're like signatures. They come from the operating system. And if we touch them, the next time there is an update, they'll be overwritten anyway. So that's why we use these. For example, I might decide that I want to block chat, right? So what do? I go here and delete it. I don't have to delete it. It's just for clarity because the way the proxy works is first in, first out in terms of the rules. And I'll go back to it and I'll explain it better in a second. But it's for my clarity, I can delete it from here and I can add it here, okay? If I go here and add it, that gives me the list of the ones that are available and I put it there and then it shows up, okay, in alphabetical order as it actually ends up at the top, okay? I have to save. It's not, see, it's in blue. It hasn't been saved yet. So I can go back and modify if I don't like it. Now, once I save, then it goes into white, okay? I can, for each one of these, I can change, I can do each line, I can change each line, okay? Let me reset it. I was saying something about the proxy in the configuration, sorry. Configuration overview. When I'm looking at the proxy, these rules, the web client rules, are applied top down. You can see that the custom core deny and malware comes before anything else, basically, right? Before the permit all. I'm not even using the custom productivity in this case because simply there is a permit all at the end. So if I modify the custom core by adding chat, I don't have to modify the custom productivity because custom core will come first. The only reason why I deleted it from the productivity is really, in this case, just for clarity, okay? one thing about reporting. There are some templates, right? So why are they important? Okay, because these 3 templates are used by every one of our clients. And I really suggest, if you're not getting them from one of your boxes, go in here and actually set them up. So this is a template that will send you a report of the full configuration. What I was just showing you 2 screens ago in the configuration, it will show you the entire configuration of the box. Everything that we have access to that we can modify is going to be in the report in a PDF format. The box history runs, you're going to run it on a period, for example, once a month. It will show you the actual configuration changes for that period of time from the previous time it ran. So that little configuration history that I was showing you earlier on the screen, if I run a report for this month, it will show me that and everything else that's been done in this box for the month. Okay? These reports are very important for auditing. If you're subject to audits, your auditors will want to see these. They want to see the full configuration, and they want to see that you are keeping an eye on the fact that changes aren't made randomly. And I'll show you in a second how to do that. The last one is the standard KPI report. This is one that all our clients receive weekly, usually. Most of them like it. It's been created over the course of years based on requests from our clients anyway. And it contains a summary of practically everything that's happened on the box for the period of time. If we're doing web filtering, it's going to tell you the users that have browsed the most. It's going to tell you the URLs that have been accessed the most in terms of number of hits and in terms of gigabytes downloaded. It's going to tell you if we blocked anybody from going to the internet for malware or for category violation. If you've probably seen it, the report. If you haven't seen it, I really suggest that you set it up on every one of your boxes. By the way, we're happy to set it up for you as well, but it's really easy. You go to the reporting here and you go templates, then you say create the report, right? Now that it created the report, you go into the schedule and it's right there. Okay, so you edit it. And the first thing you need to do is you need to enable it. You need to decide when you want to run it. If you want it for the week, or you want to receive it on Monday morning, I suggest you don't run it at 00, because KPI is a summary, right? So for the box to know that you got 50,000 hits from China, it needs to summarize all of the hits from China and write the 50,000 somewhere in the database. So for it to be accurate, if you run at midnight, it's not going to be accurate. I would suggest you run it like maybe 2 a.m., maybe 3 a.m. at a time that's probably very low for business, and the box has had plenty of time to create the KPI itself in order for it to be accurate. Okay, you choose the time frame. You can run it. These are the time frames that you can run. Okay, you can even run a period that is yearly. Obviously, yearly can sometimes be a problem if the disk has been replaced. I've had situations like that. So I don't recommend that you run it only yearly, run it more often. Okay? If you want to run it just now, you can click, let's say, run now. When now or when custom at, like, okay, I want to run it at 3 p.m. today, right? For the period of time as well. You can change it and choose it. In this case, you can actually customize the date, okay? So while the recurring has some pre-customized dates that are periods that are dependent on how often you want to run it, the run once can be custom all over, okay? And then you choose who you want to send it to. There is something a little, I don't even know how useful this is, but you can change the titles of the widgets, and you can move the widgets around. What does that do? Right? It does, it changes the order of the pages of the report. So now the KPI summary now is in the page number 2, instead, whereas the CPU utilization now is in page number 1. I can literally move things around and make this a whole page, and then push to the other one in a separate page. It just allows you to modify the order of the report and the view of the report. You can remove certain pages if you don't care about the CPU utilization. You can just say, I don't want to see it. Statistics, CPU statistics, I don't want to see them. You can remove stuff that you don't want to see. I find the removal more useful than the moving things around, honestly. The default of the report in the way it's organized seems fine for most people anyway. Do not forget to activate it, to enable it, because otherwise it won't run. You have the option to choose different languages, just in case English isn't good enough, and 2 different formats, okay? I think I've said enough. And this is, by the way, that is just for any of the reports, okay? So when you create your VPN reports, or when you create your box config or your box changes, configuration changes, you can do the same thing of editing it and running it on a time basis or whenever you want, or now, and so forth.